Hello, mentors. Welcome to our podcast series, Mentorships in Education, brought to you by Just Education at justeducationfirst.com. I am your host, Judi Epstein. I am very excited about the wide range of experts who have volunteered to give up their time and expertise. They will share their innovative ideas, their exciting perspectives, their rich resources, and their research with us. Please continue to delve into these topics on their websites and with your legal counsel, healthcare provider, and education professional. Our guests will have information that will be relevant to mentors supporting struggling students, parents, teachers, administrators, legal support, and health professionals. We will address all levels of education with issues that affect academic performance. Our goal is to open discussions and introduce a variety of approaches to those searching for information in a free venue. So mentors, let me introduce our guests for today. Hello, mentors. Welcome to the Just Education First podcast, Mentorships in Education. Please visit our website and explore the library of resources we are compiling. See what topics interest you and acquaint yourself with our interviewees who have shared their valuable insights and information. We're going to continue our investigation today with a special guest, and I would like to introduce Christine Calabrese. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you.
So we've been talking so much about this for so long. I'm really excited that we're finally getting an opportunity to do an interview. Before we get into our talk, I'd like to tell our mentors a little bit about you because you have had such a significant impact on education, primarily in the domain of reading. You've been in education for over 25 years, and I know that you've taught K, first, second, third, fourth, and fifth grades, which is quite an accomplishment on its own. You've also been a drama teacher and a French teacher. You're in the New York area and have received some awards. Won the PS 151 Teacher of the Year Award. Another one is the Patrick Groff Teacher of the Year Award that's awarded by the National Right to Read Foundation. And I looked that up also. That's named after a professor in California who contributed significantly in the area of education. And again, it's a national award and it's quite a prestigious award. So I compliment you on rising to the level of being able to achieve that as well. You're a private tutor and have worked with many students who have struggled in school. You've been an outspoken advocate for all reading programs, which have multisensory, direct, systematic, and explicit teaching in them, which are the primary components of a solid reading program. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. You access current available curriculum. Your goal is to access current curriculum that has to do with relevancy, reliability, validity, and efficacy. And this is one of the areas, from I understand from speaking with you, that you focus on these areas when you're training teachers and when you're evaluating programs, which you do for the school systems that call you in. You are also an accomplished author and have some very interesting books both online and available, and we're going to get to those in a few minutes. I also want to talk to our mentors about what you do on a volunteer basis, because also you have given so much to the community as an advisory group, the advisory group of the International Foundation for Effective Reading Instruction. And you support, which I thought was very interesting, the work of, and you give me her name because I don't know how to pronounce it in India.
Arti.
Arti.
Her name is Arti Narik, I think. Her last name is Narik. Arti Narik, right.
And that's all right. And she has put a lot of effort into teaching slum girls in India. And you do a little bit of work with that area and trying to develop education in India with this young woman. So I don't know if I've forgotten anything. If you would like to add anything to your long list of a long list of work that I have left some things out. I know that I have. I tried to highlight some of the more important ones. And I will say that if anyone is interested in learning more about you, they should go to your website. Would you like to give that right now?
That's www.christinecalabrese.com.
Okay. And they can certainly learn more a little bit about you and what you are doing. And you have such you've had such an impact on education, particularly in reading. And so many of the recognitions that you had, which certainly highlight the contributions that you've made. But I want to kind of get into some of the more specific things that you have done. And I am kind of interested in starting with what you've been doing when a teacher or administration calls you into a school and you support them in their assessment of the curriculum that they are trying to develop by either what they are doing in the school, I suppose, or with software or materials that they're thinking about buying. But maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, what it is that you do.
Well, to evaluate a curriculum, in order to evaluate a curriculum, it's my humble opinion that one must be truly familiar with the most efficacious curriculums. So once you have those underneath your belt, you can evaluate any curriculum that comes along your way because you know exactly what are the components of a top-notch curriculum. So what is a top-notch curriculum? Let's think about this. A top-notch curriculum is one that reaches every single student. In fact, if your slow group, you're the slowest ones in your class, are not moving, then the curriculum is not top-notch. That's what qualifies for a top-notch curriculum. And anything else is not working. When we leave our slow children behind, those who are perhaps learning disabled or have some struggle, when we leave those children behind, they can't catch up to our brighter children. We are really doing a disservice to our entire class. So when we're evaluating curriculum, we want to look at how efficacious it is with all the children that we're teaching. So that's how I approach an evaluation of curriculum.
What are some of the other criteria that you evaluate when you're looking at a reading program?
So when we're looking at a reading program, we're going to look for a direct, systematic instruction. We're going to look for phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary development, fluency, and comprehension. Those are the pillars of a good curriculum. On top of that, those are the pillars of a good curriculum. An excellent curriculum is what we call multisensory. So what are our senses? We see, we hear, we touch, we feel. All of those senses need to be tapped into in that curriculum in some way. And music takes it to another level. So if that curriculum has music embedded in it, that takes it to a totally different level, because then we're incorporating the right side and the left side of the brain. Everything's all mushing in together. So those are some of the things the components that you look for in a curriculum. For reading instruction, we're not just looking for reading. So we're not just teaching children to read. Reading instruction requires, how can I say this? A movement from the basics all the way to actually being able to read fluently. And that movement has to be fluid, has to come and go, and you have to touch the children that are not decoding, and you have to touch the children that are decoding. So you have to, it's quite a challenge to reach everybody.
It's almost a linear process, like when you write an essay and you have transitional sentences from one paragraph to the next. Being more English focused on that, that's kind of what I'm hearing. So that when teachers develop their lesson plans and so forth of what they're going to do that day, there has to be some continuity from one part of the instruction to the next part of the instruction. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, yes. Right? There has to be rewind and review. Rewind and review, rewind and review, and move forward. Rewind and review, and move forward. There's an overlearning with the letters and the letter sounds. And let's not forget that reading instruction also includes writing. So, I'm talking about handwriting, because when children learn to write their letters, that solidifies the sounds that are associated with those letters. So that comes into play. Handwriting is definitely a major part of learning and a major part of that multisensory piece. So you're not just looking at the letter and learning the letter. Now you're writing the letter. Now you're writing the letter and saying the sounds of the letter. Now you're writing the letter and coloring maybe. So a lot of things are coming into play.
I know where you're going with this, but I don't want you to get into it right now.
Okay.
Because I want to talk about it, down the road. I know the singing component and the writing component are very important to you, and you have developed them in very significant and very interesting ways with some of the programs and things you've done. But one of the things I'm interested in is when you are working with teachers and developing a reading program, and all of these components that you're saying need to be in the classroom. I'm sure we have teachers that are listening to us. How do you approach them? How do you get them to buy in to what it is that you're bringing into the classroom, especially if it involves changing a lot of what they're doing?
It's not an easy task. I mean, teachers enjoy a level of comfort with what they know. And they also enjoy a level, they have a commitment towards that comfort. So that is not an easy task. I would suggest to the administration that the teachers enlist in the LETRS program, LETRS, by Louisa Moats. Once they get that program underneath their belt, then they are much more equipped to write a curriculum if that's exactly what the administration wants done. So
is that a software? I know that's Louisa Moats.
Louisa Moats, Dr. Louisa Moats, right? Dr. Louisa Moats.
Is that a software? Is that a book?
No, it's an instruction. It's a PD. A professional development for the teachers. It's what they should have gotten in college or for their masters. It's the ins and outs of the English language that we really didn't learn. And that's what the LETRS program will do for their teachers, especially their early childhood teachers. Once that LETRS program, once they've gone through that LETRS program, the transition to learning a new curriculum, going on board with a new curriculum or a curriculum that's much more adaptable for their classroom is much easier because that letters program sells them on it. It is a difficult, I understand their position too, because I've sat in so many PDs and rolled my eyes so many times.
Right.
Oh, here we go. The latest and greatest, the newest thing. But the letters program with Dr. Louisa Moats is a really good first step for an administration, for a school district to get on board with. Once that's done, discernment and understanding what curriculum works, what curriculum wouldn't work, comes so easy to teachers. It gets rid of all that confusion that we have when we get into a classroom. So that, I would suggest that to principals.
Do you think that would be accessible to parents? Would they have access to that information, or would it be beneficial for them to understand that, or is that more professional?
It's built for teachers.
Okay.
But I'm sure if a parent wanted to contact Dr. Louisa Moats, to contact the letters program and say, I would like to learn, I'm sure they would be welcome with open arms as well. It's really a great education. The English language is not an easy language to decipher, to understand, to what letters make what sounds, how does that all fall into play. I've seen alphabets that have the wrong, posted in classrooms that have the wrong sound associated with letters. So it's not an easy language, and it shouldn't be left to a young teacher or a novice teacher or even an older teacher who's had some experience at chance. They should have this truly great instruction underneath their belt.
You mentioned when we were talking before, I think that a book called How the Brain Learns to Read, and I'm wondering if that's something that you would recommend, or is that a video that you recommend that people look at?
That's a fantastic book, and that's by I believe he's a professor in France. His name is Stanislas Dehaene, and it's How the Brain Learns to Read. You can see that that's a YouTube video. And then his book is called Reading in the Brain, Stanislas Dehaene.
Why don't you spell the last name for our mentors?
Capital D-A-H-A-E-N-E. Reading in the Brain.
And I noticed that you said that it's on Amazon. It's available on Amazon.
Yes, it's on Amazon. You can buy it on Amazon. You will get your highlighter out and start highlighting, and you will learn so much from this guy. His YouTube video is excellent, How the Brain Learns to Read. He's on the cutting edge of understanding the brain and how it learns to read. And basically what he says there is we finally, through pictures and through imaging, brain imaging, which they got the children to sit somehow, and they did some brain imaging, we finally understand that the brain learns phonetically to read. It doesn't learn through whole word. And he proves that to you as you watch his video and you'll read his books. You'll understand more about how our brain really functions. It's fascinating. I think it should be required in colleges.
As a parent, it would have been very helpful for me with my children to understand a little bit more about the process when my kids were young, because I certainly struggled with what works, what doesn't work, to try and get them involved in the process of reading. Could you, and with that segue, perhaps you can make some suggestions as to how parents might engage their children at home. Very young children, 1, 2, 3, preschool children. What suggestions do you have for getting them involved in reading and get a buy-in from them?
Okay, so parents are at a great advantage. That parents have been told to just read to their children and that they'll learn to read. And I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it. I've had to tutor kids whose parents were extremely bright and read to their children, and boom, they get to second grade and they still can't read. Right. So what is it? The parents would know, what is it? Every night I read to this child. He can memorize the book, but he can't read.
Right.
So it really comes down to, parents, please understand this. It really comes down to learning those letters, learning the letter sounds, and then just putting those letters together slowly. For example, let's say you learn all your letters and your letter sounds, which you don't have to in order to really start to read. But let's say you learn A, B, C, D, and you know A, B, K, D, right? Well, guess what? You can say C-A, ca. You can start going ca, cab. You can put a B at the end of it, cab. Already you have learned to read. So parents, you can start manipulating the letters slowly in chunks and then read little short vowel words. You start with the short A words, short E words, short I words. And as you read, so really important for parents, you're going to make sure that your children, and teachers as well, you're going to make sure that your children are tracking with that one finger. And actually, I would take the finger and hold the other fingers back and make sure that they're tracking. And you're also going to make sure they're spelling. So every time they read a word, cab, they're going to spell it to you, C-A-B, cab. So reading, right, and spelling, and you're going to have them write that word, C-A-B.
You could probably do games with those too, like
absolutely.
They putting letters on cards, turning them over, having the kids pick up 2 or 3 cards and seeing if they can make a word, almost like go fish kind of thing. But when you get a word in your hand, put it down or something. With a 3-year-old would be able to do that.
Absolutely. One of the most efficient ways of learning to read, though, is putting the first 2 letters together, the C and a consonant and a vowel. So you're going to not go k-a, but you're going to go ka, and then you put a last letter there. Put a T, cat. Put an N, can.
What a great idea.
Cab. Put it, and then just spell it. Make sure they spell it. So they're reading, they're spelling. Make sure they spell, because what does that do to the brain when the brain reads and then the brain gets to spell? What are they doing? They're saying the letters again. The letters are getting again imprinted into their brain. So these are really important things to remember. Just little tips on how to start your little ones to read.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. I have 2 grandchildren that I've been working with on reading, and I never thought about putting 2 letters together. We've been taking, I made up some cards, like 3x3 squares, and we've been putting letters on them, and they've been kind of picking up 1 or 2 at a time to see if they could make a word. But it would be a lot more fun, I think, if I put some combinations down of letters like C-A or B-U, and let them pick it out of a pile and then put down the consonants that might end in
exactly.
If they can make a word. I love that idea.
And then have them spell it.
Right.
So as long as you have them spell it. I'm very big on that spelling.
Yes. Yeah, I guess. Okay. I think I got that part. Okay. Talk to me a little bit about differentiated instruction and what your feeling is with scaffolded reading groups.
Right. So I've met teachers who have 5 reading groups in their class, and they only hit their reading groups once a week. When you have 5 reading groups, you can only hit your reading groups once a week, right? But I feel that you must hit your reading groups every day. So the max for me are 3 reading groups, and every single reading group gets a half an hour of time. We're talking about a 2-hour block now, because you need a half an hour to do your reviews of your letters, reviews of this, and then you need to split into groups, and then you have to figure out how to manage what am I going to do with those other kids while I'm with this group. There's a lot of management going on there. When teachers have 5 reading groups, it's not as hard for them, because then they're hitting one group a day, and the other children are doing something else. They have the other children doing something else, and it's not as hard. I understand that, but to me, I've always tried to do 3 reading groups. That's my max. Now, you're going to have some stragglers in all of them. In the top reading group, you're going to have some kids that are way really fast, even in that top reading group. In the middle reading group, stragglers, and in the bottom. Make sure that those reading groups are fluid. In other words, if a child is starting to achieve in that bottom reading group, you move him quickly to the next one. And if a child in the middle reading group is really achieving, and you feel like he's testing out, move him to the next group. And if the one in the top group seems to be dragging and struggling, you're going to have to move him to the other group. So when you explain this to the children, they need to understand that these are not forever groups.
Right.
That we can move back and forth, in and out, depending on what the teacher feels is best for you. So that is important for teachers to remember as well. Many teachers do that, which is great.
But you're not opposed to differentiated instruction in terms of separating kids in reading groups. The primary point I'm getting from you is that these are not engraved in stone, these groups.
Oh, no, I'm not opposed to it at all. They're not engraved in stone, though. So you have a kid all of a sudden gets a growth spurt. That's not right to keep him in the group that is requiring him to do less. In fact, you're going to frustrate him, and perhaps even he'll get a little lazy and say, well, I don't have to work as hard. So, and differentiating instruction is a little bit different than what differentiating instruction. Okay, so differentiating instruction is everybody's doing the same thing, but everybody does it in a different way. That's differentiated instruction. Okay. So the one kid might have a sentence, and they might have to write a sentence and illustrate it. Another kid might have a word that they have to write and illustrate. Another kid might just have to read a word, not even read it, just be able to read it and illustrate it. So that's differentiated instruction.
That's a lot of work for a teacher if she's got 5 kids in a middle reading group, all with strengths in different areas, visual, auditory, verbal, to have so many different activities for that group to be doing. Is that what you...
Not for that particular group, but for each, if they have 5 different groups, that's what they're doing with those 5 different groups. Like there might be there one group there that might be, okay, you guys are just going to draw the picture. Another group is just going to draw the picture with the word. Another group is going to use a sentence and draw the picture.
Okay.
Another group is going to use a paragraph and draw the picture, right? Okay. So they're going to have, that's what differentiated instruction, and their main goal is perhaps maybe a vocabulary. That might be a vocabulary lesson. So that's what differentiated instruction is.
Okay, now I understand.
And it is a lot of work for the teachers. Yes. Still, it's a lot of work for them.
Now I know that you have a video online that talks a little bit about learning to read in kindergarten.
Yes.
And maybe you could talk a little bit about that, since we're kind of talking about the process of learning to read, and give our mentors a website where they can go and listen to that video. But first, tell us a little bit about it, how it came about, and how it was developed, what the purpose of it is.
That video was made in the classroom with my kindergartners towards the end of the year. So teachers, don't go thinking that when you look at it, you're like, wow, these kids are pretty good. I did have an aide in that classroom, so teachers need to know that I had an aide, and I believe, I'm not sure if she was filming or if I had just set up the camera and filmed. And that video shows the 3 reading groups that I have. It shows the instruction with the top reading group, the instruction with the middle reading group, and the instruction with the lower reading group. And it does not show, though, what the children are doing at their tables while I'm working with the group. That's the only thing that it doesn't show. And of course, there's an aid in there, teachers. So I know that some of you may not have an aid. What am I going to do? So there was an aid in there to help me with that. With especially in kindergarten, they need to be monitored when they're sitting at their seats.
Right.
So, and that video I made simply because our goal really has never really been to teach kids how to read in kindergarten. Basically, our goal has been just to teach them their letters and their letter sounds. But because I have all this experience, this 20 years of experience, and I knew how to do it, I just did it with my kindergartners just to prove that it could be done. And you'll see that the top reading group, they're reading about on 2nd grade level, middle. They're doing really well. The children are doing really well. There's a few videos on that YouTube channel that the teachers might like. There's one video also about how to teach children to read with expression. That word I could never understand using with children. Read with expression. I hear myself say it. Read with expression. The kids look at you with a blank face. What's that?
Right.
So there's a video there where I use the word story voice. Use your story voice.
Oh, okay.
And I show how using that word instead of saying reading with expression, the children understand. Oh, a story voice. When you're telling a story, you have a different voice than when you're telling.
Now, is this your video that's on there?
Yeah, that's on there.
Okay, that's on there also.
Reading with expression.
Okay.
There's another video. There's a lot of videos on there for reading. There's another video that shows my slowest reader in the beginning of the year and at the end of the year. He was learning disabled.
That's interesting.
Yeah, he was learning disabled. He was in kindergarten. He went into special ed, but he did quite well.
So if people want to listen to these videos or see what the library is of your videos, all they would do is go to YouTube, put your name in, and then all of your videos would be available?
Yeah, the name of my channel is called Mrs. Calabrese's Teaching Channel.
Oh, okay.
It's called Mrs. Calabrese's Teaching Channel. And go to the playlist because there's a whole bunch of different stuff on there. So go to the playlist for reading, and you'll see all the videos that have to do with reading. I also taught preschool, and I came up with a lot of cute little songs for the preschoolers. There's all those for the preschoolers teachers. How to have them sit, have little songs, little ditties.
So this is probably a good time to talk about your interest in music, the connection between music and learning to read. because you've mentioned it several times. And I know there was a particular woman who encouraged you and supported you in this endeavor. Maybe you'd like to speak to that, your experience about how music, you said it gets, the right brain, the left brain engaged, what you have noticed with kids who have been introduced to the process of music, learning to read. I don't know if you want to speak about the woman a little bit in her program, but might be a good time to talk about that.
All right. Well, so learning to read and learning those letters can be there's 26 of them. And then there's all of these sounds that are different, like OR says or and AU says aw. There's all of these things that you have to memorize before you can even really read fluently. And then there's the long vowels and the short vowels and all those little rules, right? So with this method that I used, and the name says, okay, teachers, here's the name of the program. You're going to find it anyway. It's called Sing, Spell, Read, and Write. With this method that I used, learning those letters became so much more easier because now you're singing a rhyming song. You're pointing to the letters. You're singing. And all of a sudden the classroom turns into a happy, fun place. And whether you're tutoring, whether you're working one-on-one with 2 children or in a big group, when you sing with children and you sing these happy songs, which are built into this program, you become, the classroom changes. All of a sudden, the dynamics of the classroom change. It becomes a joyful, happy place. Who wants to point to the letters and sing today? Who wants to, oh, I do, parents would tell me, oh, I can't stop, I'm singing this song in the house. So that's a good thing. So
did you notice students who were struggling perhaps with the mechanics of learning to read or developing the letter connections, moving ahead a little bit once the reading was connected to music?
Yeah, so it's all of the phonics that's connected to the music. And then there's a blending song that she does with ba, ba, bi, ba, ba, and then with bat, bag. So there's a blending song that gets connected to the music. So when you look on that YouTube video where that little guy who couldn't even hold a pencil. When I first started out with him in kindergarten, he couldn't even, it was blank. You could see when I started with the music, his attention was grabbed. The brain, even though it had some learning disabilities, now we were accessing an area of the brain that isn't normally accessed. And the music itself, the composition of the music, she wrote this music, and the composition of the music itself is so dynamic that it actually triggers things, I think, in the brain. Anyway, that's what I've seen over my 20 years with the music. And teachers, you will go home and sing the songs. But eventually they do turn off.
Kind of like the last song you heard on the radio. You sing,
right? Oh no! And there are some teachers who said to me, "Oh, I can't sing. I can't do that. I can't sing." And basically, it's just this stuff is on a DVD, or a CD, so you don't have to sing. You just put it in and let the children sing, and you could even mouth it if you feel like you're way off. So you really don't have to sing. The teachers have said to me, "Oh, I can't sing. I'm really nervous about that." And it's already done for you, basically.
Is it priced where teachers could buy it themselves, or is it something the school needs to purchase and put into a library for teachers?
Yeah, so normally it's a classroom kit that the school would buy into the program.
Oh.
So that would for the classroom. But if you're a homeschooler, if you're a mom at home, you can certainly buy a home kit and start your kids off with that program, and that is a big boost for kids. So around here, we live in a pretty affluent area on Long Island, and they're not using those kinds of programs, anything like that. So if a child has that at the home and goes into school, the teacher is going to say, "Oh my goodness, they know their letters already." Of course they do, because it's fast. It's fast when you sing a song. How much faster can things get when you sing a song? 1, 2, 3. So the kids are going to be set ahead with that. And the reason why I did that video again, that learning to read in kindergarten, in an area in Brooklyn, in an area in Brooklyn where there was no support at the homes, was to prove that even without support from the home, with a really good structured program, you can get your kids to read.
So. That's interesting. I know that when we spoke, and you said you're a big proponent of teachers sharing ideas that are working in their classroom, and one of the best ways for teachers to learn is to ask if they can go in and observe in someone else's room. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, or share some of your experiences with that?
Judi, even at 20 years or 22 years teaching, I could spot a teacher that knew more than me, or was able to manage their classroom in a way that, how is she doing that? What's going on? And what an honor for another teacher, for one teacher to go to another teacher and say, "Look, I really love the way you're doing this. Can you show me?" And hopefully that other teacher would be open to it. Or perhaps you can go to the administrator and say, "Look, I really love the way teacher Blumenfeld over there is managing her class. Would you mind asking her nicely if I could come in and watch, see if there's something that could go on?" We have so many PDs, and we go to PDs and we sit and you're basically told what to do. But what we really want to know is, how did that teacher get those kids to sit?
I know you mentioned that to me when we were talking. I see all these kids all lined up walking down the hall. You said, "How'd she do that?"
I know. She did that without yelling and screaming. or how they get them to sit, or how they. And I've been to PDs. It's funny that we say this. I've been to PDs, especially the preschool PDs, and we've had a whole long day full of things. And I shared little songs that I made up. And what did the teacher say at the end of the day? "What did you like the best?" "Oh, I really love that song. I would do that song the whole day just to learn a little ditty," right? But these are little gems that we need to have in our back pockets so that we can.
Right. They resonate with the kids.
Exactly. And we learn from each other. These are things that we learn from each other. Not so much at a PD, unfortunately.
I like to read a little bit about the person I'm going to be talking to, and try and find some words of wisdom that I can then throw out at you to explain what you meant by this. This has to do a little bit with your book, which we're going to be talking about, but I love your quote that says, "Kids need to develop a relationship with their pencil and their crayon." And that, I mean, I read that and I laughed. I mean, I chuckled because I've never heard anybody say that before. And I'm not quite sure what you mean by a relationship. And I know that from here we can go to talk a little bit about your books and the things you have online. So maybe you can kind of give us a foundation here of where that came from and what you mean by that.
Well, it's silly because when I was a kid, I would, hit my sister over the head and say the broom did it. So it wasn't me. I said, hit that broom. So this is my little child brain relating to children's brains, and you could see children. They take inanimate objects and they make them into characters. So why not the pencil? Now, the pencil is going to be their friend for the rest of their life, hopefully. I know we think, the keyboards are going to be their friends for the rest of their life, but the pencil is still quite important. And it has its, so I made up a story to give it a personality.
And it's adorable. It's really adorable. I mean, I chuckled through the whole thing. Yeah. Talk about it. Talk about the development of how you integrate it in your classroom.
Yeah, I would take the pencil and have him talk to the kids and say, "Come on, hold me right," or or I would say, "He's tired now. Put him down." And they'd say, "Put him to bed," on their desk because he's tired. You know how they hold it and they're banging all the time.
Right,
No,
right.
He's tired.
Giving me a headache.
I know. He has to go to sleep now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started to develop this pencil, and the more I did, the more I saw that the children took to it. But they would put him down and make sure that he went to bed and pick him up the right way and handle him in a way that he was their friend. Mm-hmm. So then I decided I would make up a story about him so that they would be able to hold him the right way.
I mean, some of the kids hold those pencils and you wonder how they write the way they've got it like a fist, like a ice pick in their hand, and they're trying to write with it.
You do wonder, and so I'd like to get them in kindergarten or in first grade when they're really learning. Presently, all the teachers that are listening are saying, "Yeah, but we're just told them we were told to just have them write." And it is true. The teachers are being pushed so hard, even in kindergarten, just to have them write. They have no time to teach them how to hold a pencil. So your first book is called? Poor Little Pencil. That's an ebook.
An ebook. And how would people find that?
That's on Amazon. It's an ebook. It's called Poor Little Pencil.
And what is that about?
And they're both about the same thing.
Okay.
Poor Little Pencil. He's got a lot of friends that are doing a lot of things, and he's not doing anything. And he's really gets quite upset. The illustrator, interestingly, Judi, the illustrator for that was the artist at my school, the art teacher at my school. So I wrote all these books basically with educators. He was the art teacher, and so he did it. He did the illustrations for that. We uploaded that book on Amazon, and I wasn't happy with it because when I got into the preschool classroom, I wanted his friends to be in the classroom. I wanted it to be much more relatable, a classroom that I wanted a little ball, and I wanted things that the children were touching and feeling right in the classroom,
right.
in the book. And that first book has a bat in it. I think it has a flower in it. You know, it has things that are not in the classroom.
But it still, I imagine, presents a message. It would be worth watching to kind of get, or picking up on Amazon to kind of get a foundation, would you say, for the book if they were to get the book?
Well, you don't, I mean, they both cost about $5 each. So I would just get the newer book rather than the older book. But there are people still buying the older book. I don't know why, but they still buy it. It could be that it's on YouTube, and it's quite a big video on YouTube. And so it's looked at a lot. The newer book, the illustrations are gorgeous, and they were done by my assistant in preschool. So she was a graphic artist. She is a graphic artist, so she did all the graphic artwork of that newer book. And the newer book goes 32 pages, which is what a picture book is required to go for.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. I didn't know that either until I got involved with all this.
Wow.
It took me 5 years to write those books.
Who
It takes
knew?
a long time. It takes a long time to write something that's significant.
Now you have, it is a storybook about a pencil. It's charming. It's so many parts of the classroom come to life and develop characters, and the pencil develops a character. It's really a charming story. But you also have other information